subscribe. You're listening to the Hashgraph Enthusiast Show.
Hosted by Brandon Davenport, aka It's Brandon D.
Well, how's it going, everybody? Another week rolling on. It was Canadian Thanksgiving on the weekend on Monday, so I had Monday off, which was nice, but back into it. 4-day weeks are like awesome, but sometimes they're the worst because then you're like catching up on everything. We got Philip tuning in, LFG right on. We got Tata watching with the ghost emoji. Yeah, the Dead Pixels Ghost Club Drop 5 mint is coming up in 5 days, I feel like. Yeah, the 21st, October 21st. Every ghost is a whitelist. I'm pretty stoked about that. Yeah, if you're watching, leave a comment. Let me know what's going on. Let me know where you're watching from. Got a lot of interesting stuff to talk about today. We also have OnlyLarping from Karate Combat, co-founder of Karate Combat, and also Up Layer 2, the first Layer 2 on Hedera. We've got him stopping by on the show in about 30 minutes, which would be great. But yeah, you're watching Hashgraph Enthusiasts, episode 145. Breaking the rules. We're breaking the rules, guys. I called it Breaking the Rules just because, you know, I'm having OnlyLarping from Karate Combat on. And Hedera has always been this culture of like, we don't need a layer 2. Layer 2, whatever. And then it was kind of surprising to kind of be like, oh, we're getting a layer 2. So I'm excited to learn more about it and see what's going on. But yeah, the show Hashgraph Enthusiasts is live every Wednesday, 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on X, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Support the show, leave a comment, share if you're watching. Let me know if there's any news you want me to talk about. But I think what we'll do is we'll just start diving into it with what I think is maybe one of the biggest stories potentially kind of continuing to unfold that involves a governing council member, which is pretty exciting. So we're going to talk about Mondelez. Obviously, I ate their Oreo cookie on the show almost feels like a year back. But Mondelez, right, creator of, or the, manufacturer of like Toblerone, Oreo, Cheez-Its or whatever, all those different, any kind of like snack that you get at the grocery store runs through the Mondelez supply chain. And as we've known, about SKUx. SKUx is definitely a leader in kind of like item level payment acceptance, digital payment innovation. We start talking about coupons. We start talking about all these things. So I know that people are always asking like what's going on with Coupon Bureau, all these different types of things. It's a meme in the community when it comes to coupons. And it's kind of like, it's kind of still happening. So I just want to, so again, this is involving Mondelez, Hedera governing council member in the food industry. This is involving Hedera, and this is involving SKUx. So I'm just going to literally read the press release because it's pretty short, but it kind of gives you everything you need. So I'll read this to you. SKUx, a leader in item-level payments acceptance and digital payment innovation, today announced the completion of the first phase of its payments-based offer innovation project with Mondelez International and Hedera, an open-source lending enterprise distributed ledger, an open-source leading enterprise distributed ledger technology network. That's a mouthful. As a member of the Hedera Council, Mondelez International, whose mission is to empower people to snack right. This was just pausing there. This was funny. There's like a couple messages from some people that were like, snack right. I don't know what snacking right is, but you know, snack right. It is what it is. I dig it. Snacking Right partnered with SKUx to develop innovative DLT-based solutions. Now, again, heads up, there's a lot of like corporate speak in this, so we'll kind of digest it after. But DLT-based solutions on Hedera focused on digital transformation initiatives, supply chain management, and enriched business processes to enable enhanced customer experiences. So, right, we're touching on quite a few things that we're interested in this ecosystem from like an enterprise standpoint. The first phase of the innovation project successfully expands upon the current SKUx and Mondelez customer service program in market. So real quick, that's referring to news we were talking about on the show back this spring, I believe, about Mondelez SKUx, which was pretty exciting. And we know that from the interviews that Mondelez has given to, I think it was, what was that show that Zenobia did? It was like a podcast. Oh my God, I lost it. What's that podcast name? Anyways, people know what I'm talking about. They had the governing council representative from Mondelez on there talking about coupon fraud and how to solve that and the different types of things they want to work on, and mentioning that they currently kind of had a proof of concept and there was stuff, as we see here, that was in market. So this is something small that's now expanding to something bigger, essentially. In market. And so the current implementation that's in market right now is designed to enhance customer offer experiences by adding near real-time SKUx digital payment options alongside coupons, mailer paper checks, vouchers. The expanded innovation project publicly maps a subset of these payment transactions to the Hedera network, providing an end-to-end secure and seamless customer offer experience tied to an immutable record of transactions. So basically this again is just hitting on what we've been talking about in this ecosystem over and over again, right? Coupons are a massive business. It's rife with fraud, and the Hedera consensus service, other Hedera services are like a perfect product, perfect solution to solving these things. So this was a quote from the COE leader of digital strategy of Mondelez, saying, quote, "As a customer-first global organization, we're committed to being at the forefront of innovation. With today's high volatility consumer behavior and increasingly complex supply chains, it is critical we focus on digital transformation and leveraging Web3 technologies to increase customer satisfaction and engagement, blah, blah, blah." So basically they're saying this is only the beginning. There's more to come. And it's pretty clear that as a governing council member, and as we've kind of seen with the criteria to join the governing council being you have to develop a use case, this is pretty promising. Some of the products too, just a reminder, like Mondelez is like Oreo, Ritz, Cliff Bar, Tate's Bake Shop, Cadbury Dairy Milk, Toblerone, like all these different major things. So this is a potential use case that's going to like touch a lot of different areas of customers, right? Like this is when Lehman would talk about, distributed ledger technology being involved in everything. This is kind of a peek at what that kind of looks like. The CEO and co-founder of SKUx, Bobby, says, "We are proud to play a pivotal role in delivering an incredible customer experience for Mondelez, as well as the broader industry." So basically, this is a really, really interesting use case. And it's funny too, because I know that we joke a lot about coupons. We joke a lot about the Coupon Bureau. Is that happening? Is it not happening? We saw kind of SKUx come into the fold this year and kind of into last year as well with their kind of related offerings. Water break. Stay hydrated, everybody. So what this kind of tells me is this type of use case hasn't really slowed down. Like anything in the technology industry, stuff keeps shifting and moving. Things pop up and things fall off. It's not to say that the Coupon Bureau isn't doing stuff with Hedera anymore. I know there's questions around that, but it's clear that Hedera is still playing a role when it comes to kind of this customer engagement, coupons, retail, food, those different types of things, point of sale. So that's very interesting. I dig that. Oh, that's right. The podcast that Zenobia did was called Gossip About Gossip. There is a great episode. If you go and find it, it's with the rep from Mondelez, and they go into detail kind of about some of the different things that they're going to be building on Hedera. So it's interesting to watch that now, seeing this news. You know what I mean? It kind of paints a bit of a picture. Tying into this news is Joshua tuning in. Coupons pay the bills. Yeah, they lower your bills too, which is great, especially if you're trying to save some coin on your recent Toblerone purchase. Hashgraph Association recently published what they're calling their Hashgraph Horizons. First of, I hope, many newsletters. This one is kind of authored by Kamal Yosefi, president of the board. We see him in a bunch of different posts and making some moves. So read through this, some interesting stuff. I wanted to just kind of highlight two things from this newsletter, just really quick, just reading them. And this kind of ties into the Mondelez stuff, right? So there's an excerpt from this newsletter that says, quote, "Over a third of Hedera governing council members are developing their industry use cases through the Hashgraph Association's Enterprise Accelerator Program, which we heard about when Rob Allen was at the Hashgraph Association developing that. Again, a third of Hedera governing council members are developing their industry use cases through that accelerator program. So there is the project management office, the PMO, and then the technical design authority. And basically this is a body inside the Hashgraph Association that is working with these governing council members to build out these use cases, like the, planning, education, design, deployment. And when we look at the SKUx news, it kind of lines up here, right? Because the bottom of this press release says, recently, Mondelez joined the Hashgraph Association's Enterprise Accelerator Program. So exactly those things, offering funding, training. So this is kind of those things coming together. So it's interesting to see these enterprise kind of use cases starting to take shape. And as we saw with this one, there's stuff already live in market, albeit small, but building on it. So very interesting to see. The other thing from the Hashgraph Association newsletter that I found interesting was highlighting this new, the Hashgraph group. So this was established by Kamal and Stefan, both part of the Hashgraph Association leadership. This was back in May 2023. This was with the ambition of becoming a self-sustaining operation that is no longer reliant on the finite Hedera HBAR treasury, but rather focused on venture building, co-investing. So this is kind of a break. What the Hashgraph Association is saying here is we're breaking from the traditional grant model. Because, there are flaws with that model, as we've seen in our ecosystem and as we're seeing more and more with other ecosystems. The grant giving model can definitely have issues. And naturally in a startup ecosystem, when you start to see market shifts, when you start to see venture capital coming back in, you start to think about those things and want to prepare for them. So it's a very interesting thing. And they recently received license approval from the Financial Services and Regulatory Authority, FSRA, to manage a regulated $100 million venture capital investment fund titled Hashgraph Ventures Fund I, or 1, with the Abu Dhabi global market in the UAE. So that's a very interesting thing because in that area, there's a lot of innovation happening, contrast to what's happening in the US with a lot of, you could say, we don't have a lot of regulatory clarity on what's going on in the US versus some of these other areas. There's a lot of different innovation happening, and there are a lot of governing bodies for that are just way more defined and way more assistive in getting some of these use cases through. So all's to say, we've got some enterprise use cases rocking and rolling. We've got some good positioning in these other economies that are so important. And we're seeing, even when you scroll through X, more and more dialogue around that. So I don't, it's good to see that. Let's switch gears now too. And if anyone has any news that you want me to chat about, just leave it in the comments. I'm seeing some comments here about H Monkey Takeover from Cosmic. Always watching the show. Support that. We got some other comments here. Dig it. Yeah, I agree. This is a bullish development by Mondelez, 100%. I'm not too familiar with this. What's with the Grayscale leaving out Hedera? They just announced a list for their pick of 35 digital assets that a company will utilize in investment projects. They picked Doge and Casper over HBAR. Not 100% familiar with that. Josh, yes, October 21st, Ghost Drop. Let's rock and roll. Wonderbar, what's up, H Barbarians? You know what's up. HBAR's up. I'm pretty sure. HBAR's kind of up. It's kind of up. All right, so let's continue on here. This was a really cool update from like a community use case that I love to see, Rooster Cartel. If folks aren't familiar, Rooster Cartel does hot sauces. It's an NFT project. They've been in this ecosystem for a long, long time. They were one of the first to utilize the HCS 20 standard for essentially inscribing information on the consensus service. They were using it for the manufacturing of their product. Now they announced that they accept HBAR payments on their website in partnership with Hashgate. So that's really, really, really cool. And these different types of things are important because we're talking about infrastructure and use cases that are going to be used, right? Rooster Cartel probably isn't the only e-commerce product, company or project that has items to sell that you got to ship that want to, sell them in HBAR, allow them for purchase in HBAR. So doing these types of things and laying this groundwork is so important. So I'm really happy to see that. Shout out to Rooster Cartel. I'm noticing a trend too of kind of like more and more ability to kind of spend HBAR on things outside of just minting NFTs and those different types of things. So I love to see that. This was a massive bit of news this week, just launched yesterday, pack staking. This was a long time coming. A lot of people in the community were hungry for it. And, for me, to be honest, when HashPack announced their pack token, I was like, whoa, I didn't really expect it, but it really is such a cool idea and in line with what a lot of other projects do on other chains. It's a great rewards incentive. It's a great way to support the project. And it allows other different types of utility. Like I know that you get they've got, what do they call them? Packback rewards for doing swaps in the wallet and different things like that. And so the next step was earning yield on that pack token and how they would kind of go about that. And so what they did was a very similar model to Saucer Swap, where you've got your pack token and then you've got your XPack token. And it's essentially like a liquid staking model, right? Where you swap your pack token for XPack. And then the ratio of XPack to pack just increases, right? So over time, in accordance with whatever the APY is set at, the X variant of the token will be worth more and more and more than just the regular variant of the token. And then essentially when you want to realize the gains on that yield, you would just swap back or for something else, right? That's the whole point of liquid staking. It's very similar to HBARX as well. So there are these liquid staking models in Hedera. HashPack has adopted that. I think what people are most excited about is right now, the APR is fixed at 5%, right? So every year your pack will grow 5%, which is, to be honest, like that's really the sweet spot for APR. I mean, when you think of, the S&P 500 or the stock market, when you think of every other crypto network out there, when you think of just what the standard yield is for an investment, it always kind of settles at 5%. So that feels pretty good. Now, then when we look at HBAR, the yield is under, still under 1%, like under 0.5%. So we're still in this ecosystem because of, the lower liquidity and activity, especially in a bear market. We're going to have to see how things take shape, but it is going to take something to spur things on, something to start to build on that excitement. And I mean, HashPack is a massive brand in this ecosystem. They got a token, they got a great APR. The bear market or the bull market's kind of hinting that it's coming. So this is definitely, in my mind, a bullish kind of like building block for this ecosystem. Just, it's as simple as that, right? When people come in, they're going to be using wallets. They're going to be using DEXs. They're going to want to get tokens for these things. They're going to want to earn yield. They're going to want borrowing and lending. They're going to want these things. So it's all these kind of building blocks that we need to get into place for when things really kind of switch on. And it's good to see one of these building blocks here. So that's fantastic. Another great update from, it's kind of like a retail enterprise mix kind of thing. We all love Dropp Wallet. I mean, I think most people will love Dropp Wallet because, as we remember last year when they announced that they were joining FedNow as one of the kind of trusted vendors or integrations, it was the Dropp Wallet was featured on the FedNow website before anyone knew. It pumped HBAR, and Dropp is, I speak with, their team from time to time, and it's a great team. Like, if we talk about companies focused on Hedera, motivated about Hedera, dedicated to the network and building out tech that can be exported to other areas, like Dropp is just a really great example of just like a good company coming out from, the Hedera ecosystem. And so they've announced they've joined the Circle Alliance program. And so they're going to be right close to the source when it comes to one of the most important aspects of this ecosystem in crypto in general is Circle, right? The issuer of USDC. You've got USDC, you've got USDT, kind of these two major stable coins. Circle obviously being one of the most favored in the Hedera ecosystem. And so by integrating USDC, Dropp enables users to benefit from the reliability of DLT without the volatility associated with other cryptocurrencies, and it allows payments to be made quickly and securely in multiple currencies such as USDC HBAR, USDC ETH, and USDC AVAX. As we all know, or not as we all know, but as a lot of people know, USDC, right? The US dollar stablecoin from Circle, it comes in different flavors, right? There's different USDC on different chains. There's Hedera native USDC. We've got about, 8 million on Hedera of stablecoin liquidity. And then maybe you've got tens of millions or hundreds of millions or billions on other networks. And so you've got these different types of USDC. We're really hungry in this ecosystem for more native USDC on Hedera. So this is really great to see, especially as Dropp kind of continues on their path for adoption and kind of what's coming in their roadmap. So it's going to be very interesting to see, but we need more USDC. We need more stablecoin liquidity on Hedera. It's absolutely crucial. So let's continue on to another topic. This is a topic that's on a lot of people's minds right now. And let's just take a quick peek here. People won't stop talking to me about this, but it's fair. So we go to Hedera transactions, 2 TPS on 1 TPS on the Hedera mainnet, right? Let's go to HederaRevenue.com, right? So we're seeing how much revenue is generated on the network. And if we turn on and off Avery Dennison, right, the revenue is the same. If we were to go to, let's say, the last quarter, right, you're going to see a big difference in revenue. As we know, 99% of transactions are submitted by Avery Dennison's @myIO use case. These are subsidized transactions. These are HCS transactions. They account for about 70 to 80% of revenue. So all those conversations aside, we have seen, and I can't pull up Metrica, of course, here because it's offline now, but we have seen TPS on Hedera kind of see like a substantial drop down for weeks at a time. And again, because a lot of the TPS, 99% of it is from this one enterprise use case, we're largely revolving around their own kind of like corporate timeline, right? If there is something happening in October that requires them to spin things down or upgrade or change or migrate or whatever it is, we don't know what those things are, but the kind of like that kind of like ecosystem metric is tied to Avery Dennison, right? This one company, this governing council member. So there's a lot of questions as to like, why is this the case? What's going on? Will it come back? The thing to pay attention to is the payer account, right? There's an account that's used by Avery Dennison at Atma.io to pay for those transactions. That account is filled by the HBAR Foundation. It's an agreement carried over from Hedera. So that's something to keep an eye on because largely when that account starts to run low, things will have to switch over. So we've seen that in the past. There is a lot of HBAR in that account though. So we don't quite know exactly what's happening. There was an article that was shared regarding Avery Dennison opening up a new RFID facility in Mexico. And we know that the Atma.io use case that's kind of, is supply chain based. Does this have something to do with it, right? Does the opening of a new RFID chip facility in Mexico have something to do with this? Is Atma.io expanding? Is it integrating into a new facility? Is it migrating facilities? What's going on? So not to say this has anything to do with it, but naturally my mind goes to like, what could be causing this? What's changing at Avery Dennison? What could be impacting Atma.io that we know about? And this is really kind of the one thing. So we're keeping an eye on this, but not a ton of info, right, about what's happening with Atma.io. We just know the TPS is still down. Historically, we should see TPS kind of come back up, potentially before the weekend. We are entering into kind of like unprecedented territory now in regards to the length of time that Atma.io has been down. So raises a lot of questions, right? Both worrying, but then also like super exciting and gets you thinking. So we'll continue keeping an eye on that. One more thing too. I mean, this is a bummer, but it happens. And, I know these guys and we see that WallaWallet, Ledgerama is going to discontinue the Android version of WallaWallet. So this is a statement made by Jeremy Fletcher from the WallaWallet team. To all our WallaWallet users, at this time, they're unable to continue supporting the Android version of WallaWallet effective November 1st. So obviously, this is when we have an ecosystem that is, it's difficult for companies and founders to get funded. You start to see stuff like this. So it's a bummer. But what I want to say is, make sure if you're using WallaWallet on Android right now for your crypto, please, 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 please back up your seed phrases, right? It says it in the article from Jeremy here, right? Please back up your seed phrases. You can put your seed phrases into a new wallet and open your account. If you don't back up your seed phrases and WallaWallet gets removed from your Android phone, bye-bye all of your crypto, right? Your WallaWallet is not what stores your crypto, right? It gives you access to your account via your private keys. And an extra note, don't share your private keys with anybody. Don't share your seed phrase with anybody. Don't do anything like that. Tom, Pix5, first cup of coffee thought, he says, should we even call Atma.io revenue? I mean, it's subjective. That's why on the Hgraph Hedera revenue dashboard, we've just put a switch to turn that on and off so people could see what revenue on the network looks like with and without Atma. I don't know if there's like a definitive stance on that. Personally, I wouldn't, right? Just because revenue implies outside capital coming into the ecosystem, right? So Atma purchasing HBAR in the open market to pay for transactions on the network. So now it's not the end of the world. I mean, all this HBAR that's being sent to Atma, it's just cycling through the ecosystem, coming back, and some of it's going to everyone's wallets through staking. So that's great. So it's not, I think it's like a pretty good use, like it's a marketing spend. It's a proof of concept. It is what it is, but you know, that's my thoughts on that. Also, quick shout out, and we're going to have OnlyLarping joining the show here in just a couple minutes. Co-founder of Karate Combat, and I'll say inventor of the first layer 2 on Hedera, up layer 2. I'm really, really looking forward to this. But real quick, I wanted to talk about the new, I guess not new, the part 2 Hedera Hackathon. This is the HelloFuture Hackathon 2.0. The registrations are open now, and I think if we go to, all right, maybe there we go. HelloFuture. What's the domain? HelloFutureHackathon.dev. So there's a few differences here for anyone familiar with the kind of like hackathon number 1. There's kind of some new tracks here, right? We've got DeFi, of course. We've got, an advanced track, AI driven stuff, digital securities, but then we've also got like green finance. This is a new, item. We've got, DIDS, which is a new item. And then we've got Hashgraph Legends. This is going to be for, winners of the previous hackathon. HGraph, we won 3rd place in the Trailblazers track. So that was amazing. So for us in particular, we would do the Hashgraph Legends track. But there's no longer just 4, right? There's more. There's the total prize pool, $300,000. I mean, that's juicy. I think that's fantastic. And we'll kind of just have to see, what new projects come out of this hackathon. The last hackathon was pretty awesome. And of course, we saw Nomad from Milan. That was pretty incredible, the digital payment stuff. There's a lot of peer-to-peer payment, products. There was Nomad, which also included like a hardware component. And then there was, what was it? It wasn't Gemio. I can't remember. There was another one that had just like an app, right, that leveraged the user's existing hardware. So anyways, hackathons are great. I think they're fantastic. I was not expecting a number 2. There we go. Perfect. Thank you, Jay. Severa. That was the one. Severa. That was great. I think they won number 1 overall or something. So that was fantastic. But yeah, I think the hackathons are pretty critical for, a growing ecosystem. Now, let me see. If you got any news that you want to chat about, leave a comment, and I'll be happy to talk about it. Let me see if there was any other stuff. Very cool. Very cool. Let me see if there's any stuff going on. Let me check the Reddit. And actually too, I want to mention something. I didn't have a chance to bring this up, but this was pretty wild. Just to put this into perspective, we're going to have OnlyLarping joining in just a couple minutes here. But this was shared. These statistics are pretty wild. Over the last 150 days, the number of karate token holders increased by 227%, which is pretty wild, from 116,000 to 382,000. So, to put that into context, that is a pretty wild growth rate for if you kind of say, this is a startup, this is a, startup tech company kind of thing. that kind of growth rate is pretty impressive, especially for crypto. And the recent event too, Karate Combat 50, you know, one thing that I really kind of attached on, I want to talk about this with OnlyLarping, but one thing that I kind of focused on and really kind of occurred to me, because I'm not like huge into, you know, combat sports. I've never like a UFC guy. But one thing that I know about that industry, and especially the sports industry, is like the intellectual property lockdown is like a really, really real thing. You can't, for example, you know, restream the events, right? Like someone like me, like if I wanted to, maybe I should do this, is like on a Karate Combat event. I haven't, just because I wouldn't know what I was watching exactly. But on a Karate Combat event, I could like stream it on my show here and commentate on it and all those different types of things. And with, you know, like a UFC or like something else, you wouldn't really be able to do that. You would get takedown notices. There's copyright infringement stuff. There's all sorts of different things. And so with Karate Combat, one thing that I've noticed is that there's so many people, like even just in the, like sitting at the event, that are like all set up with their streaming stuff. They're streaming the event. People are sharing clips. Like I'm watching it, I'm recording clips, I'm sharing clips. And not only is it, people aren't getting takedown notices and stuff, but it's like encouraged by Karate Combat. They're like, it's free to use, it's free to stream. And as we all know, like you can just watch it live for free on like YouTube, X. And the streams have been getting like millions of viewers. And it all comes back into this kind of puzzle piece, which is, we talk about mass adoption of Hedera. We talk about people getting into this ecosystem. We talk about just the mass adoption of crypto in general, right? And Karate Combat, if you take the Hedera element out of it completely, right? If you just take Hedera out of Karate Combat, it is a pretty exciting thing to kind of see unfold, because it is considered like the event, you know, the big event, the big crypto event that happens. There's so many people that go there, like presidential candidates or celebrities, or I mean, Hawk Tua Girl was there, like whatever. I don't know where you would find that elsewhere in crypto that's like literally consistently. That was a big innovation they did too, I'm pretty sure, which was like piggybacking off of crypto events. So it is kind of turning into this monster in a sense. And I have kind of been thinking like, well, where is this thing going to go? And for me, I honestly didn't really picture, again, like we talk about breaking the rules and stuff on Hedera, I didn't really picture a layer 2, because generally a layer 2 is designed to solve per performance, right? You have layer 2s on like Ethereum, and you've got layer 2s on all sorts of other networks. I mean, Polygon is a layer 2 for Ethereum. And so those are designed to solve for performance issues on Ethereum. Whereas on Hedera, you think about a layer 2 and you're like, well, it's not like we need to solve for performance issues per se. But is it more of a interoperability type thing, right? Because what I've been reading about the up layer 2 stuff is, you know, it's really about getting all of these similar types of use cases, like I'd say maybe, you know, sports use cases, on one network, right? That's living on top of Hedera, and having all these use cases be able to interoperate with the correct rules. I know that there's a lot of stuff on Hedera because it's an enterprise chain that can kind of start to like slow things down. So it's a really interesting approach. This, and also too, I've seen this mentioned too. This is an interesting thing as well. HBAR is layer 0, and then up is layer 1. That's a creative way of looking at it. I mean, when you think about it, you know, it could make sense from kind of like an idea standpoint. I don't know technically if Hedera is technically a layer 0, but again, things are constantly being like redefined, in crypto. So I don't know. It just depends. I mean, they're calling it up layer 2. I think literally the Twitter account is called up layer 2. Let me see. Yeah, this is a great point too. We got stuff in the middle too. H Suite, right? H Suite with their decks and all those different types of things. The AppNet, layer 1.5. That's fair. There's all sorts of different, there's layers to this thing. Let me see where OnlyLarping is. I mean, to be honest, this is a busy guy. We got some good insights here from Tom too. Tom says, L2s, parachains, side chains solve for their focus, community abstracting away from the native chain service. I think that's pretty much the point. Like what Tom's saying is basically up layer 2. The purpose of it is like, there's this community, Karate Combat, and they're noticing that, I think what in their article they published, let me load it up here. Right here. This was actually published by Decrypt, which is pretty crazy. So this was, the news from October 11th. Karate Combat launches layer 2 network to license game model to other sports. Boom, someone getting kicked in the face. And where did I see? Let me do command. There was a mention of like a bunch of other. There we go. This is what was interesting to me, and I think this is kind of what it's all about. There are currently 20 to 30 projects set to launch on the company's forthcoming layer 2 network, the co-founder said, and Karate Combat still hopes to onboard several more before the L2 goes live. So that's a really, really interesting thing there. And so I wanted to just take a minute here. I've got OnlyLarping queued up. I'm going to bring them up, but really quick, just a quick intro. OnlyLarping is the co-founder of Karate Combat and is a driving force behind the up layer 2 built on Hedera. Since its arrival on Hedera, Karate Combat and the Karate Token have elevated the ecosystem to new heights, weaving its way into the broader crypto narrative and culture. The project also leveraged the native Hedera tech, really becoming a champion for the network. I'm really excited to dive into this with OnlyLarping. So OnlyLarping, welcome to the show. How you doing, man?
Hey guys, can you hear me all right?
Yeah, perfect.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So honestly, it's been way too long getting you on this show. And I mentioned before you came on, I'm not like a combat sports guy. I'm not like a UFC guy. So for many, I think in the Hedera ecosystem, Karate Combat was like an introduction to that kind of sport. And so I want to just quickly ask you, things have probably been like super busy for you since announcing up layer 2. We just were looking at the Decrypt article. Like how is the last couple of days been? I think it's been like 5 days, probably pretty crazy, eh?
Well, the same day we announced it, I don't know why we always do this to ourselves, but the same day we announced it, we also had a Karate Combat event.
Yeah.
Which went quite well. One of our best for sure. And so for me, like getting through the announcement was a big relief. Because that's really my jam, and I got to enjoy the event. So yeah, I'd say the hype around the event was pretty fantastic. I felt like the announcement was received quite well.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm happy about all of it.
Yeah, that was really awesome. And I mean, I titled this show "Breaking the Rules," and I know we're going to talk about up layer 2 and like some of these other different components and everything. But I mean, when it comes to breaking the rules and saying that kind of, Karate Combat obviously is breaking the rules in so many different areas when it comes to crypto and just kind of combat sports. But then when we talk about the Hedera ecosystem, I know that many in Hedera were like, oh, we're never going to need a layer 2. It's all this, all that. And then you see like, oh, we've got a layer 2 now. So I have to admit, for me, I was like, whoa, this kind of came out of nowhere. And then to your point, the headlines start coming, the sentiment starts coming, the tweets start coming, and it starts to feel right. And so maybe one of my first questions for you, just really quick, was like, Why do a layer 2 on Hedera?
For sure. So we tried to lay out a rationale in detail, and I guess the headline is it's not about scalability and low
Mhm.
fees. Like Hedera has that already, right? But I think that we only know why we created our L2, which has some pretty good business rationale behind it. But I think there's going to be so many other business rationales beyond scalability and fees for people to launch their own L2s. And so I'll talk about why we did it. So first, to step back, why we want to spread up only gaming at Karate Combat. Um, we're really, really intrinsically motivated to make it spread as fast as possible for a number of reasons. Number one, from just like a cultural and education standpoint, everybody in the world knows what gambling is.
Right.
Only a few 100,000 people know what up only gaming is. We can't get up only gaming in the dictionary ourselves in the next year. If we can get 10 or 100 other projects using up only gaming, it can spread so much faster. It can become
Right.
a real thing within culture. And also, if we do it right, ideally we can all share users, right? And so user acquisition can kind of like exponentially like skyrocket. And also from a crypto capital market standpoint, Karate is like a trailblazing token, which is good. Like it's first of a category,
Mm.
but eventually you want to create a category. You want that category on CoinGecko of like other up only gaming tokens. So that's like the intrinsic motivation behind it. And so since we really want it to happen, the question is, okay, how do we make it happen as fast as humanly possible? Maybe the right way isn't to just like hire a BD team and go out there and try and sell it to people. Maybe using new kind of like crypto native ideas, we can actually give it away for free.
Mm.
And that's what Up is about. It allows us in a sustainable way to give all of our software away for free to any other project that wants it, to easily share users amongst each other, and ideally to even give them grants to accelerate the process. And that's what Up allows us to do. It allows us to license this software in a brand new way. Um, yeah.
I love that. Yeah, it's like modern software licensing. And you know, I want to get into it more, but I mean, just because I have you here and just because I'm curious, you mentioned before, like you're more of a Web3 guy. So my question is like, why, from your perspective, take the sports angle with Karate Combat on Hedera, right? I'm just going kind of back a little bit to the beginning here. Is like, of course, now we know like the strategy's working pretty well, like with all the events. But from your perspective, going back to those early days of Karate Combat, what were the factors that made you decide to mix, combat sports with Hedera?
Sure. I mean, I think even one step back is like, why mix Karate Combat with Web3?
Right.
Which is
Right.
it's not obvious at first. And I
Yeah.
think, when people first come across it, they think, oh, this is kind of weird and maybe a little silly. But actually, we had a very good business rationale. Karate Combat has this very large awareness. We've got 6 million followers, we've got hundreds of millions of views per month. Um, but taking that really large awareness and converting it to true super fandom, like where the real value is in sports, that's not trivial. It's not easy.
Mm.
Frankly, it ordinarily takes like a lot of time or a lot of money
Right.
to build these new stars. And our thesis was, we've built up a demographic of younger fans, right? And our thesis was that if we financialize things a little bit, we might be able to speed that conversion up. Because if you pull our demo, almost half of them will tell you that they don't enjoy watching sports unless they have a bet on it.
Right.
They grew up playing games, using social media. They expect a level of interactivity and access that you just don't get from passively sitting on the couch for 4 hours. And
Yeah.
so, if we could get them a little financial upside on every fight, maybe we can get them actually researching the fighters ahead of time, learning their names, their backgrounds, their narratives. That's what it really takes to get someone emotionally invested in,
Right.
a sporting event. Like, if you don't know the names of the athletes, like how much are you really going to emotionally care? You might be like, oh, that's an amazing knockout. But unless you kind of like feel like you know this person, like why are you rooting for one or the other?
Yeah.
And so that's why Web3, why Hedera. Frankly, I have to give the hats off to the HBAR Foundation. In this is almost 3 years ago. Karate Combat was talking to many of the layer ones out there. We knew we needed something kind of scalable, fast, cheap to really reach millions of sports fans. We knew that we needed a killer UX, right?
Mm.
And we talked to the foundations at most of the layer ones at the time, and frankly, they just believed in our vision and saw it. It's a weird idea, right? It doesn't look
Yeah.
like anything else in crypto before.
Yeah.
But some of the people at the foundation had some pretty serious like expertise and experience in media. They did the research to see like, hey, this isn't just like a quote unquote karate league. Like this is a real serious sports league, and what they're doing on the VFX side of things is really impressive. And the crypto idea, makes sense. And I think they just took the time to kind of do the work and believed in it and supported us, and we partnered up. And so the Hashgraph itself like kind of meet our requirements, and then the HBAR Foundation sort of believed in our vision.
I dig that, and you make a good point too. And I think this goes for all projects, which is like, your business plan, your product, your vision was already pretty well established, and your execution on it was already starting to kind of be refined. Like you brought up the visual effects and different things. Like it's pretty incredible. So that's really a key, is like you do have to start to get your project to a point where it's not just an idea. It goes a little further than a demo. And I mean, watching the broadcast, even the early ones, there is a lot of freshness to Karate Combat, and you can start seeing other people kind of borrowing ideas from Karate Combat now. But it's about like just being innovative and executing on it. So I love that.
Thank you.
Now, this was probably one of the most interesting aspects of Karate Combat as a project that I think I see you kind of speaking to often on X and stuff like that, which is, Karate Combat, is very different from a lot of projects, but most notably when it comes to like VC investment, IP ownership, control for holders. Most notably, I was just talking about this on the show earlier, you allow the broadcast to be freely consumed, repurposed, chopped up. You guys even put out a tweet that, inviting people to take the content and use it.
Yeah.
So can we talk a little about like your approach to these things? Like, why don't more brands take this approach, and why are you kind of so gung ho about just really being open with this stuff? And almost like, I see your post about VCs and I'm like, man, this guy's like off the rails on this stuff. I love it.
Sure. So on the content side of things, I think it's a bit path dependent. Mature sports generate upwards of 80% of the revenue from media licensing, and much of that revenue is locked in, going back to other places, athletes, infrastructure, overhead, and their deals with distribution are quite restrictive. So they don't necessarily even have the liberty to allow
Right.
people. They definitely can't allow a streamer to come in and just stream pit side on their own Twitch channels and stuff, right? They got a serious amount of approvals and paperwork to ever let that happen.
Right. Even if they wanted to, they can't.
Yeah, so there's definitely a path dependent part of it, but then I also think there's just like kind of a cultural aspect to it. I think when Dana White goes on TV and threatens to send all the streamers to jail, it's not just the kind of the rights issues. I think it's also kind of like an internal view on how content should be monetized. And I think in general, people are looking forward, probably think that content is, monetization is going to change. Like, how hard is it to get a 20-year-old guy to pay for a pay-per-view? Like,
Right.
like impossible, right? Like they're streaming, they're playing with TikTok all day and watching Twitch and stuff, like that's what they grew up doing. Like, are they gonna like turn around and pay $80 for content? Like, actually, no, right? They're just gonna watch the highlights or they're gonna rip it off. And so it creates a big opening, if you can figure out how to, get the content paid for in a different way, to grow with this audience, by giving away the content for free. And if you're gonna give away the content for free, then you better go nuts with it, right?
Right.
Like, why just do it in one place? Why not have it everywhere? And why not invite as many people to make content on it as humanly possible?
Gotcha. Yeah, like you bring up the Dana White stuff, and it's like that reminded me of when Metallica was like freaking out about people on Napster and different things like that. It's this push and pull with content, and yeah, you're right. There's two sides to it. It's either they want to but they can't, or it's just culturally baked in to a point where they're just stuck in the past. Sometimes it feels like,
yeah.
And there's a lot of money to be made in the past, that's for sure. But the future is, it's where it's at. And I think that's really what it's all about. And then also too, like you talk about the VC investment side of stuff. Like you really make a point to make it clear that, Karate Combat is owned and effectively governed by the karate holders, and you kind of criticize some other projects that might have an overweight representation of VC and different stuff like that. I thought it was very.
So it's not necessarily VC. VCs have been incredibly supportive of Karate Combat. We have incredible investors. Actually, my point is a little bit more on the structuring.
Okay.
So actually, most crypto projects that you see the token, but somebody else also owns the equity. And normally that's the founders and the investors. It's another one of these kind of path dependent things. A lot of VC funds, they're set up not to purely invest in tokens. They have a mandate to invest in equity plus tokens. But it definitely screws up the incentives long term, because now you have, one group that's purely incentivized by the token, which is like the communities and the builders.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have another group of insiders that also owns equity, right? And that's really not good. I think that's one of the worst things in the crypto markets. Everyone focuses on the pie chart, like who owns what, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but there's this whole other pie chart on like 90% of these projects that you're not seeing. And so like a lot of people criticize Karate Combat. They're like, oh, the founders own too many tokens or whatever. I'm like, okay, yeah, we own a lot. We also invested like tens of millions of dollars of our own money building this. But that's the only pie chart. There's not another pie chart, right? Like there's not some phantom other pie chart. You can actually make the token distribution look way more like colorful and even if there is this other bucket. Right? It's like very easy to like give the founders of the project a small amount of tokens if on the other side they own 50% of the equity. But that's bad, right? That's way worse. And so yeah, it does, it's one of the things that bothers me because it's one of the easiest things for like trolls on the internet to be like, hey, you guys like own too much. But like, yeah, all right. Yeah, we own a lot. We invest in, a lot of our own money, but there isn't some other piece that you don't own of it. This is just it. This is Karate Combat. Now, I should point out, nobody owns Karate Combat. Not us. We don't own it, and nobody else does either, right? It's owned by this ownerless foundation that the token governs. Tokens currently can't own anything from a legal standpoint, but they can govern things. So
really cool. And there was one, I could pull up your post, but there was a word that you used to describe this entity or structure of like VC friends in an ownership of this other entity. I can't remember what it was. It was like this shorthand for something. I can't remember what that word was.
Oof, I might be blanking as well.
But you know what I'm talking about, right? There was like a term, but that's okay. I'll pull it up later if it comes to me. Now, I wanted to just kind of talk about up layer 2, obviously, first layer 2 on Hedera. And we already talked about kind of the business rationale of building a layer 2. And I think that that's refreshing because, as you said, obviously, most of the times a layer 2 is done to get around performance issues, but this is more around interoperability.
Yeah, to date. I think that's changing really fast, though. If you talk
Yeah.
to the people who like work at the roll-up as a service providers and stuff like that, and now you're seeing like lots of L2s launch on Solana, and they're calling them network extensions or
Okay.
whatever, but they're L2s, and it's for some business logic because,
Hmm.
um, yeah, I mean, to really fully understand it, you have to go a little bit deeper. So like the up token, ideally, it will not just capture value from transaction fees that happen, from the fans of these various sports leagues and esports teams and fantasy sports platforms, but it will also capture transaction fees that happen because people build applications on top of them, right? So like
Right.
nobody's going to come in and build a bunch of these emergent applications on top of up only gaming unless there's multiple up only gaming properties out there, but there's tons of things that you can build on top of the up only gaming primitive. We have lots of ideas for it that we laid out in the article.
Mm.
And the cool thing is, like, even though we don't have like a license agreement with like these emergent layers on top of up only gaming, they're still like generating transaction fees for the up network. So it's like this really interesting way to license out software that I think will become quite popular, because I think like sort of every consumer, I think most of the successful consumer apps in Web3, they're going to use Web3 as like sort of an enabling technology, like a spice, a flair, a special piece on top of some great product, right?
Mm.
It's not going to be the BL and end all. Like once you get outside of like infrastructure, like core infrastructure and DeFi, like DEXs and borrow lend and stuff, I think most of the successful consumer apps, Web3 is going to be a part of it, right? And if
Right.
Web3 is a part of it, then it can probably be a part of it for other consumer apps. And once you've created it yourself and you've proved it, why not find a way to share it with other consumer apps? And so how do you do that? Like how do you license it out? And I think an L2 is a really interesting way.
That's really interesting. Yeah, it's about like almost rethinking the way software is distributed. Um, that's really cool to think about it that way, because generally I think that the reaction I have is like layer two is always about solving for performance. But to your point, even outside of Hedera, it's like it turns out there's a lot more uses for it. There's a lot more different ways to think about a layer two. So I that's really interesting. And just diving a little deeper based off of the information I've been able to gather, um, I understand that and correct me if I'm wrong, but the up layer two is an EVM ZK roll up with ERC20 tokens that live on it. They roll up into the Hedera smart contract service, and so I wanted to see if like you were able to kind of give like a bit of a map of like, what is this layer two? How does it interact with the Hedera network? What Hedera services are you leveraging for the layer two?
Oh man, I should have had my CTO on for this one, to be honest.
That's okay. That's
Um,
okay.
yeah, we should probably bring him in for a follow up.
Hey, yeah. Hey, I'll make a note of it here. Let's do a part two for some more technical stuff. I love that.
Cool.
But now, talking a little more about the up token,
hmm
we've seen, I think, and you made a good point. I think you're on the HBAR Bull show on Friday. You mentioned this in a clip that I saw that was a great point. Is I don't think a lot of people talked about this, but the up token that's going to be a part of this layer two, 10% of that supply is going to go towards incentivizing kind of like DeFi on Hedera, and then 30% is going to go to karate holders. And I was curious if there was any more to kind of unpack there, like how up token is going to impact the Hedera ecosystem
Sure,
and your
sure.
layer two network.
Okay, well, we could talk about the 10% first. So,
Yeah.
10% of it will go to incentivize DEX pairs on Hedera, borrow lend pairs on Hedera, HBAR staking onto UP, HBAR weighted airdrops, etc. Like the exact plan doesn't exist yet, but it's happening.
Yeah.
And it'll take a few years to all play out. You obviously can't do it all at once. 30% is expected to go back to the karate token holders. Also, I would say like the exact mechanics there aren't completely worked out. Like the ideal way to do it would be actually through karate combat's up only gaming. That might be too tricky. So I think a large portion of it could just be through like a karate tokens staking program.
Gotcha. Okay.
But some of it will probably be through up only gaming as well.
That's pretty cool. And so the up token is going to be like an ERC20 token living in the up layer 2.
It will be an ERC whatever it's called
Right,
when it's
yeah.
on an L2. Yeah, so it'll be
Okay.
EVM compatible token, but it will be wrapped onto Hedera and probably
Gotcha.
other networks as well.
Gotcha. Okay. And then karate obviously is an HTS native asset. And so that I guess would kind of work the opposite where it's brought up and wrapped in the L2.
Exactly.
Right. And so something else that you've mentioned is so the kind of bringing all this together with this up layer 2 is you're going to have karate combat, up only gaming, all these kind of, I read in the article, 20 to 30 other projects kind of living in this layer 2, all kind of leveraging their, let's say kind of native or wrapped assets that might come from other networks that they might be bringing over, interoperating on this layer 2, feeding back into those networks. And so the karate project originating on Hedera, that could be a similar story to other projects where there might be a project that originates on one network that might just start beaming up into up layer 2 or originate in the up layer 2 and kind of beam back down into another network.
All of the above.
Love it.
It's the idea, and there's a decent amount of integration work to do, and maybe it takes us a year to like, integrate to like every popular network or whatever. But the important thing is the user experience has got to be as good as it is for karate combat.
Right.
So you need, let's say, it will be the user experience if you have a token on Hedera or up, going to be quite easy. But we also need to make it really simple if someone already has like a meme token on Solana, right? And they want to rerun hamster racing. There needs to be a way for them to send the Solana token to a Solana wallet in the app, press a button, and when they press a button, it wraps and stakes the tokens to up.
Right. Yeah, that's this also too. Yeah, we talk about layer 2s solving for different things, and it's also you keep kind of bringing up this theme of like the UX, the user experience, and so having a layer 2, correct me if I'm wrong, is like that could also be a motivation for you guys as well as like really bringing a new level of user experience in your own kind of ecosystem with all these different projects.
It wasn't a motivation. There's some side benefits, I would say, but it wasn't the motivation.
Right.
The user experience on Hedera is already very good.
Yeah.
There's some quirks on Hedera, like account creation and
token association.
Wallet,
no,
tokens. There's definitely some quirks there, but that wasn't the motivation. The motivation is really a way to license out up on the gaming and in a way that makes it all happen as fast as humanly possible.
I love that. There was a great comment made by just a viewer here, J Cool. I think this is great. It's like we hear time and time again, we built an L2 because the L1 isn't scalable, but this again, I think is feeling very fresh for people taking some time now to sit with this news, and especially even just this conversation we're having, really just rethinking what this is all about. It's to me, it feels like just like a way better rationale. And now component of this is obviously you've got this layer 2, but this is a cake. We got a layer 2, we got a layer 1. What's in the middle? And something that I kind of have heard you kind of speak on a little bit, and I've kind of heard is like this HStack, if that's the name, and it's a set of tooling that you will be open sourcing for other folks to build layer 2s on Hedera. I was curious if that was something maybe you wanted to talk about a little more.
I'd love to. Yeah. So we're doing the work to build our own L2 on Hedera, and that work itself is something that every project that comes in shouldn't need to replicate. And so we're going to take that work and open source it so that any other project that comes in for their own business reasons and wants to launch an L2 on Hedera can do so much more efficiently.
That's all. I love that. I love when projects decide to just really do the heavy lifting to make something possible and clearing that path and leaving that bridge down for everybody else. That's one thing that I was really, really excited about to see. And so obviously there's not a ton of details there, but that I think is a really important thing that I wanted to highlight was that component of it, because it's a stretch from saying like, we want to make an L2 on Hedera to like actually doing it, you know?
Yeah, so we're trying to make that gap as small as possible, because I do think that I think there's like an innumerable number of like business rationales to launch your own L2 once it's easy enough.
Love it. Now, is the up layer 2, maybe this is a dumb question, but is it for sports only, or are we going to start to see a bunch of crazy stuff on there?
I hope so. So if you remember back this summer or a little bit earlier, we actually did a poker tournament on Up Only Gaming.
Okay.
Right. And by the way, we came up with that idea in like a day, and we shipped it in like a day. We were having this poker tournament, and then we're like, holy shit, like we should be doing Up Only Gaming on this. And all we did was like brainstorm about how to like edit the content and like the structure of the different Up Only Gaming picks. We didn't change any smart contracts or anything, and it just sort of alongside a bunch of projects reaching out to us, it just sort of reinforced like how diverse the use cases are for Up Only Gaming. I can talk about some of them. So like the really obvious one is sports leagues, right?
Yeah.
If it works for Karate Combat, it's going to work for other sports leagues, especially sports leagues that are individual athletes, but there's no reason it doesn't work for team sports as well. And then, okay, one step away is, okay, does it work for sports teams, right?
Right.
Question, I don't know. I think the answer is yes, because instead of just picking who's going to win, it becomes more like quote unquote prop bets. Now, again, this is not gambling, but there's a number of ways like fans of an individual team can make predictions within that team. So like,
Gotcha.
how much is the team going to win by? How many like yards or like home runs, or who's going to get MVP of the event, all types of stuff. So I think there's tons of like quote unquote prop bets to make if you're talking about an individual team. Obviously, if it works for esports, or if it works for sports, it probably works for esports quite well.
Huge.
We had a number of esports teams reach out to us. One step away from that, and probably where we've got the most inbound is from fantasy sports, because I think people look at Karate Combat and they're like, hey, if they're doing this for one sports league, like why can't I do it for every single one, right? And so like I think fantasy sports is an absolute no-brainer. We'll have a number of fantasy sports apps launching. I think a really interesting use case is for like a true real money gambling platform or sportsbook. They gambling and sports books, it all comes down to acquiring users and retaining them.
Mm-hmm.
And now a third piece of it with the crypto native ones is like token utility. And I think Up Only Gaming can assist with all three of those things. One, they can get an app into the App Store. They can't get a gambling app into the App Store, but they can get an Up Only Gaming app in the App Store, use App Store flows to acquire users. Then they can use them to engage them daily and reacquire them by giving them kind of like free no loss Up Only Gaming picks.
Mm-hmm.
And lastly, many of these casinos have tokens now, so they're all looking for ways to add token utility. But you can get weirder from there. I mean, someone was talking to us about like a AI debate app that they wanted to do. I mean, I think meme coins like will definitely get some meme coins on here that want to add token utility and re-engage their users every day with fun contests and stuff. Yeah.
That's awesome. It gets your brain going, because obviously you think Karate Combat sports, but then team sports, you keep pulling back these, for lack of a better term, layers of this stuff.
Yeah.
And you can start to get into some pretty wacky territory, and then you talk about AI stuff, and I'm like, all right, that sounds.
And then once you get people building applications on top, it becomes even more and more compelling, because like there's even more and more things to do.
That's awesome. And really wrapping this all together is, again, it creates all of this interoperability, and you just make it so easy for people to get access to the Karate Combat crowd. You make it easy for the Karate Combat crowd to get access to all these other crowds. And so you're kind of putting everybody into this ecosystem. And once they enter in through one door, they kind of go, oh, there's all these other things I can just go over and slide into, essentially.
That's our hope. Yeah.
I love it. That's awesome.
And we do have a questing module in the app. So hopefully like we'll be able to share users with them, and they're going to have a clone of our app, and they could share users with us. And
Right.
And these are like real fans, right? And so, and probably a lot of people who are, just getting exposed to crypto for the first time. So it's pretty exciting.
That's awesome. Okay. So I wanted to I only have a couple more questions, but I wanted to just kind of bring it back to Karate Combat. I haven't had the chance to head out to a Karate Combat event yet, but to be honest, I know,
what the hell?
Dude, I can't even describe the FOMO of all these different things. Like just watching, I'm like, oh god damn it, it's so good. And I'm watching like the production quality getting better and better, and the broadcasts are feeling smoother and smoother. And there's like this goofy qualities to them too, where I'm like, wait, is like Hawk Tua talking to like RFK? They're taking a selfie, and then there's like a guy getting kicked over here. I'm like,
yeah,
it's the embodiment of like the chaos of crypto. I think it's fantastic. And
yeah,
I wanted to just, bringing up some of those moments, like, did you have any kind of like favorite craziest moments or memories, or even kind of behind the scenes stuff that kind of just popped to your mind that are like
that's
embedded?
such a hard question. My favorite part of the events is always like the end, because like the beginning is so like nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
So I would say in general, I always really enjoy the last few fights, because I know like, okay, everything's gonna go fine. Probably not gonna lose power internet.
Yeah.
Probably not gonna be some sort of like massive problem.
Yeah.
And so that's what I would say is in general is like when I get to finally relax towards the end of an event and be a normal fan.
I resonate with that so much. I used to be in like a rock and roll band. So it's like putting on shows and performing and stuff. It's like, you're always like, oh my God, is an amp going to blow out? Am I going to lose a drumstick? It's like and you're on the last song and you're like, all right, home run. We made it. We're all good. Have there ever been any like touch and go moments where you're like, uh-oh.
Oh my God, so many.
Yeah. That's crazy. There's something about live events. Like, it's why I do the show live too, where it's like, there's something exciting about like the wheels could fall off any minute, that's exciting for people. I think that's why people tune in. It's just, you don't know what could happen. And clearly, like in the last couple events, every minute I'm like, wait, what's going on now? Who showed up? Like Joe Rogan showing up was crazy.
Yeah.
That was wild.
Luck.
Yeah, a lot of it is luck. Now, just as we kind of, I wanted to just ask, like in regards to just the up only layer 2 stuff. You mentioned that we can expect things to really start cooking in Q1 next year.
Yeah.
And I just want to kind of hone in on like, what should folks really be kind of like paying attention to in the meantime, besides Karate Combat? Like maybe there's developers curious about starting their own layer 2, or maybe there's some folks who just want to like ape into up. Like what's the alpha you're authorized to share, if any?
I mean, we have a lot of work to do. And the hardest part is sort of on the front end, making it clean and modular enough to share with other projects. And so, we do have like almost half a year of like work ahead of us to like kind of get it to that place. But, so I think in advance, it's a lot of business development, finding projects that want to use it, finding projects that want to build emergent apps on top of all of our apps. I think, maybe in Q1, maybe we can launch with some sort of like points program to start to really invigorate the community around like socialify stuff. And then, by the end of Q1, hopefully we're like, up and running in a big way.
Love it. And then just, one more question before winding it down here, just because, I'm talking to one of the co-founders of, I think probably one of, the leading retail use case on Hedera, and one of the, I'd say leading retail use cases in crypto. Hedera is like this enterprise network that, as we've seen kind of is kind of trying to find its identity with how it caters to retail and all these different types of things. And, I've shared my criticisms in the past and stuff like that. But, from your standpoint, as you kind of see Hedera, the network, Karate Combat, building this retail focused use case, like what kind of insights or learnings have you had, building this, retail crypto behemoth on this kind of like enterprise grade network? Is there any kind of friction in that regard, or is there any learnings that you have? Because I know that a lot of people are wanting to see, more of these retail focused things, and we're seeing so much positive change in this ecosystem. And so I just want to see if you kind of had any thoughts around that, or kind of aware of those kind of conversations and stuff like that.
I mean, I guess my advice would be to other enterprises. I consider Combat to be an enterprise. It never gets couched that way, but we're a pretty big org.
Okay.
And my advice to other enterprises would be to leverage the retail excitement in crypto. I think that, some huge portion of the people who are active in crypto are just people, right? Like retail people who want to have fun and enjoy themselves. And I think in crypto, you really need to build use cases that engage and re-engage without purely relying on speculation. And so, that's why we got so excited about Up Only Gaming, because there's this financialization there. There's this fun there, but it's not like purely number go up type fun, which is obviously unsustainable. So my advice would be to other enterprises to focus on building applications that are fun.
I love that. I hear that theme so many times, especially again in the Hedera ecosystem, is fun, and I mean, there's a lot of that debate in the Hedera ecosystem of like, are we going to see enterprise adoption first? Are we going to see retail adoption first? It's like this enterprise versus retail type thing. And you kind of hit on that pretty well, where it's like, well, it's not like a choice between one or the other. It's like realizing that, retail is that stepping stone to like that broader adoption. And there's this engine, these people that are ready to kind of, as we've seen with Karate Combat, like dive in, create value, have fun. And, it's really interesting that you guys kind of self-identify in a way as an enterprise, because, it's hard to argue that you're not in a way. I've always seen you as retail, but that's a very interesting kind of way to see it. And from that perspective, you guys are kind of like this growing enterprise that is taking that path, that's like starting with retail versus, and this is maybe what we're getting at a little bit with some of the old school stuff. So that's really interesting to hear it articulated that way. I wasn't expecting that answer, but that's really cool. I love that. So before we go here, like, I really appreciate you coming on. I can imagine you're a super busy guy, and we'll have to do a part 2 for sure to get nerdy with stuff. That'd be fantastic. But was there anything else that you wanted to chat about, or did we manage to cover most, or hopefully all of it?
I guess if you have any ideas about how we can help the network or other projects on the network, I know you've got like a really broad funnel and you're paying attention to this stuff. Any ideas for us about how we can like push the marketing or anything like that?
I would say, I think that, I'll just be really honest here. I think that, and to preface this, did you see that? I feel really bad that I posted it. I know that it grabbed attention, but I posted that video of myself. I think it was a Karate Combat 48 or 47. I can't remember what it was, but I was like, the event was happening. It was massive. And, Hedera wasn't like interacting with it while the event was happening. So the next day I posted a video and I was like, what's going on? Hedera marketing is this. Like, did you see that video?
I think I saw it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so where I come from is I think that, what I love to see is, and it comes back to kind of Hedera being this, enterprise focused network that maybe doesn't embrace retail the way they should. I think that it's important for the community to understand that Karate Combat does a great job in bringing entities like Hedera into the fold in this stuff and really having positive experiences, and like the ads that are running for Hedera. And I see like saucer swap promotions and all these different types of things. And then just one idea that I had that could take to the next level, because since that video, there's so much more engagement and stuff. I hope I don't know if I played any real part in that, to be honest, but I think of sports and I think of these segments in sports where it's like, replay brought to you by, Colgate toothpaste and the, whatever hour. And you guys have an official meme coin and you've got like DeLorean as the auto sponsor. It's like, that stuff is so great to see. It just invokes that kind of sports stuff. It would be really awesome to kind of see what pathways look like for projects on Hedera to like, be a part of some of those moments or because, and we've seen like little hints of that. Like it was so cool when you had like the HBAR Bulls speak at, one of the events, and you've got also too, all those booths for karate for Hedera projects like Bonzo Finance and like Earthling. So I think more of that is so great, and I think that stuff is really great. And it's inherent with sports. It's like replay brought to you by this, brought to you by that. Those little placements I think go a long way for projects, because Karate Combat is such a huge entity. It means a lot when their name is attached to it.
Sure. All right, cool. That's good feedback. I appreciate it.
Right on. No, that's what this is all about. Sometimes I feel like this show is like I'm having like a Zoom call with
an alien.
Yeah. But I'm looking at your camera there, and I like see the Earth. I'm like, I can see my house from here. There I am.
You want to see something really cool?
Yeah, show me something cool. Oh, dude. Wait. Wait. You have a whole studio in there?
Yeah, I got a studio in here.
Oh my God. Did they do the moon landing in there? Or maybe you can't say. They did.
This is where it all went down.
I didn't realize, dude, I thought it was just like a backdrop. I didn't realize you had like a whole like green screen and stuff in there. That's hilarious. And maybe just like a random last question before I let you go. Why the name OnlyLarping? Because it's great.
I don't even know if I remember.
That's the way it is with so many other stuff. But it's Brandon D came across because there's so many Brandons. Like, look at Hedera. Like, there's like 3 or 4 Brandons. Yeah. So I'd be doing shows all the time in different ecosystems and stuff, and I'd be like, "Hey, it's Brandon D," right? Like to differentiate myself from Brandon Davenport. So it's just like, maybe that'll just be my username.
I like it. It's stuck. I really like your profile pic a lot, the one you're using.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, the laser eyes edition. Yeah. That was actually
isn't it still the blue with the white outline, or no?
Yeah, blue with the white outline.
Okay, cool.
And then Coinman, the HBarbarian, added laser eyes to it.
Ah, there we go.
Yeah, I felt like it was time for some laser eyes. But yeah, that's awesome, man. We'll have to have you back for part 2. I feel like the conversation just got started. It's so great to have you on the show.
Pleasure.
Huge supporter of what you're doing. And like I said, I mean, if people are waiting for mass adoption of, crypto or Hedera or whatever it is, like, guys, it's kind of happening.
Yeah.
So blink and you'll miss it, I have a feeling. But yeah, OnlyLarping, absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Pleasure, man. Thank you.
Right on. We'll have you back. Right on. So what a convo. A lot of unexpected stuff there. I mean, I think about that. That kind of rocked my brain a little bit, asking about retail and all these different types of things. And, OnlyLarping kind of saying, Karate Combat, they view it, as an enterprise. It does have a big scale to it. The names attached to it are pretty big. I think you could argue either way if it's an enterprise or not. But the fact that OnlyLarping kind of self-identifies Karate Combat as an enterprise changes my thinking about a couple things. I'm taking a minute here just to help my brain. Because I was expecting OnlyLarping to kind of be like, we're a retail project, combat sports, but it makes sense. They got a layer 2 starting. They're growing in size. They got a lot of staff. There's a lot of people. it's like this massive thing in the whole industry. So yeah, there is a strong argument to be made that karate combat is an enterprise. And so I'm just kind of like thinking out loud here, but when I asked them that question about enterprise versus retail, how Hedera fits into it and different stuff like that, it was really interesting to kind of, instead of OnlyLarping kind of saying, hey, here's what Hedera can do to help, a business or a project like us. It was more like, well, we're kind of an enterprise and this is how we approach things. And here's some advice we give to other enterprises. This is what happens in this industry. Like if you're a crypto enterprise, then you got to embrace retail. And so Karate Combat is an enterprise embracing crypto retail, and look at what's happening. Proof's in the pudding. That's a set of thinking. That's a model. That's a formula that you can apply to all sorts of different things. And I know, Tom's watching. I mean, Tom's a smart guy. It's not a business or project, business terms, blah, 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 blah. I mean, what's an L2? What's an enterprise? What's a this? What's a that? I think my point is, when it comes to my thinking on it, it's a little different now. I no longer see Karate Combat the same way. I see Karate Combat as like the incubator for something bigger, and it's being built on Hedera. Again, we don't know everything about it yet. We don't know what it's going to look like, but we know what it feels like. And it's what we've been wanting to kind of be feeling, right? It's like, boom, great headlines, spicy takes, people coming out to this event. It's grabbing eyeballs. Influencers are coming in. It's this energy. Like you have to just kind of take a lot of different things and throw it to the side a little bit and just go off of what's happening, and it's working, and like OnlyLarping said, it's like the idea itself, kind of wacky. Maybe it didn't quite make sense, but there's something to be learned from there 100%. And I'm happy. And also too, is like cool that, he's open to feedback and, new ideas and different things like that. I've always thought that, I'd love to see, like this replay brought to you by, Earthlings, or like this, this brought to you by, Saucer Swap, or this thing brought to you by Bonzo Finance. It's like, boom, now we're kind of cooking a little bit. And they've got like, it's clearly got a great relationship with the foundation. And then my mind is going like, okay, there's opportunity there. Like obviously, they got DeLorean as sponsors and different things. Like what can we do to help align all this different stuff? So I don't know. I think that maybe what I'm getting at is, it's good to have a big project, business, enterprise, whatever you want to call that, in crypto that's grabbing eyeballs everywhere consistently, time and time and time again. And it's built on Hedera, right? I think that you look at the pit, the karate pit, and you've got the Hedera logo built on Hedera. It's like, what can we do to continue growing that? What can we do to continue expanding that? I love to see that. And I know that I've shared my criticisms in the past, and I know that I posted the video and stuff, but, that's what this is all about. It's just about learning. It's about change. It's about breaking the status quo. It is about breaking the rules, right? That's why this episode's called Breaking the Rules. That's what this talk and, not this talk, I guess this is the talk now. But that's what this is all about, is really taking a lot of this stuff and throwing it out the window. Like layer 2, what is that? It's not something anymore that's just a solve for performance. It's so many other different things. And I always this is a Hashgraph enthusiast show. I always approach this stuff from like the Hedera bubble. I know that it's not maybe a healthy thing, but it's my thing. So I'm always approaching it from that area. Cause I know a lot of people watch the show. Maybe this is their first foray into crypto and they just don't know what this stuff's all about. So it's always good to kind of approach it from that way. And it sounds like we'll have a part 2. The CTO will have to set that up, and have a more technical conversation. And maybe, I'll I'll bring on someone else to join the conversation, or something like that. But I think it'll be good. I think that'd be awesome. But yeah, big week this week, right? I mean, we've got Mondelez with their supply chain stuff, with SKUx, their coupon stuff. We've got, what else do we talk about today? We got, the Rooster Cartel with their hot sauce, HBAR payments, right? Retail stuff, rock and rolling. HashPack, pack staking, live, Dynamite, Dropp, joining the Circle Alliance, right? I mean, still got Avery Dennison transactions down. We don't know what that's about. Hedera Hackathon 2.0. Let's rock and roll. WallaWallet leaving Android. It bums me out, but it is what it is. It's what happens. Back up your seed phrases. Back up your private keys. And love to the WallaWallet team. Jeremy and Rob. I met Jeremy last year. Good guy. And Karate Combat, man. Over 200% growth in the last 150 days. Wild. It's happening on Hedera. What can you say? If you want to support the show, easiest way to do it is send tokens to 0.0.1725506. That's the show's wallet. Now that we've got frictionless airdrops, anything is acceptable. I guess that's on mainnet soon, but that'll be great. HBAR obviously accepted. And I sell those tokens to pay for stuff for the show. StreamYard doubled their subscription prices, so my costs for the show has gone up. So any support appreciated. And a free way to support is just follow and subscribe, right? X, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all that stuff. That's all appreciated. Share the show. It helps the show, helps the show grow. And yeah, again, official wallet, 0.0.1725506 is the Hashgraph enthusiast wallet. And yeah, we're breaking the rules. I mean, it's been a wild year, in Hedera. So much has happened, good and bad. And we still have, a little under a quarter left. And I know that there's a Hedera Governing Council meeting this month, probably happening around now. There's a Hedera Governing Council meeting happening in November, of course. So there's all of this stuff still under the surface or still floating above about all this change that's needed and this red tape that's got to be broken and all these different things. So there's still that energy. And to be honest, I feel things have been a little quiet on that front, from the leadership front. But it feels a little different this time. Before, it was very quiet and it didn't feel right, if that makes sense. Things are a little quieter now, but I don't know. It feels like some stuff's playing out. And that's the sentiment I get talking with people in the ecosystem. And we'll just kind of have to see at this point. But I think that the community has really kind of been loud and, demanded this change. And I think that this is decentralization. This is Web3. This is what being a token holder is all about. And we just gotta go from there. So shout out again to OnlyLarping for joining the show. Fantastic episode. We'll have to do a part 2, a little more technical. And yeah, if anyone has any questions that you want me to ask, OnlyLarping in the Karate Combat CTO next time, let me know. Something would be very interesting. But with that, I'm off to go touch some grass for a bit and then get back to work. I'm hungry. I'm almost out of water. Lots of good stuff happening. Let's keep some positive vibes going, right? It's been a tough year. We need positive vibes going on. We need to have some fun, like OnlyLarping was saying, right? It's fun time. But anyways, with that, Hashgraph enthusiasts, hello future, goodbye past.
Thanks for listening to the Hashgraph Enthusiast Show, hosted by Brandon Davenport.
Listen to past episodes and support the show at itsbrandond.com/HBAR.